I'm Marcia Lucas, and I'm happy to welcome you here to my home on the Blanco River. Let's go inside. So as we go into my house, I just want to point out that this is an old Texas church door, which to me also means that this is a sacred place. So I want to introduce you first to my tree of life, and it's a very special piece. The tradition, it's by Francisco Flores of Izúcar de Matamoros, and it was traditional in their village and in Metepec when a couple decided to marry. The sponsors of their wedding would commission a tree of life to be made, and that would be used at their wedding ceremony and then taken home and put on their home altar. And so when Charlie and we got together in 1989, we fell in love with these trees of life, and we commissioned Francisco Flores to make us a beautiful tree of life and have that in our home. And I don't know if you can see, I also have a skeleton back there because, you know, we always have to be reminded of we got to live fully right now, because death is always sitting on our shoulder. I want to point out the tree of life that's in the middle shelf here. It is from Metepec, and it was made by the Soteño family. It's in the biblical story. It represents the biblical story of Noah's Ark. And I guess the other thing I want to mention before we get going is that every piece of folk art, well, and maybe that's quite a little bit of an exaggeration, but almost every piece of folk art that I have, I actually collected from the maker. And so this was by the Soteño family of Metepec. Up top, there's two animals. One is by Isidoro Cruz, and the other one is Zenan Fuentes, down in there. They're from the town of San Martin, Tilcajete, and they were some of the original old guard folk artists. Isidoro Cruz worked with the phone art, and he saw that Manuel Jimenez was making all kinds of money selling his folk art and these animals that he was carving. And he came back and he took about 10 or 12 of his compadres that we can do this. We carve masks for our ceremonies. We make toys for our children. We can do this too. The serpent was by Felipe Linares out of Mexico City. There was a young folk artist, that Ted Warmbold, who was one of the original Friends of Folk Art people in San Antonio. He started collecting him and introduced me to Miguel Santiago. This collection of animals here are mainly from the town of San Martin Tilcajete, which is a Zapotec village. So I'm going to talk a little bit about this beautiful painting by Gerardo Loza, and it's of a Huichol shaman. And the Huichols are still a very traditional group, ethnic group down in western Mexico, primarily the state of Nayarit, but down toward the coast. I love that it has so much of what's important to the Huichol, the nature, the blue deer on the shaman's sleeve, the flowers, the cactus, and on this cactus here on the right, there's a little praying mantis. And then over here, there's two catarinas, or ladybugs, and there's two hummingbirds, and hummingbirds represent the spirit, the great spirit coming down and giving a message from God. And in the sky is this serpent sort of thing happening in the clouds. And of all the incredible feathers, the colorful feathers that the shaman has, including the turkey feather in his hat. Okay, so this is my collection of goddesses. The goddess, the big great mother from Guerrero, which is a water jar. And then we have the sirena, which was made by Dolores Porras from Atzompa, Oaxaca. To her left, there is another older sirena from Metepec, which was very popular item of folk art. And in the 80s and 90s, I had to search high and low to find one in that shape. They'd kind of stopped making them. Then on either side of them are these incredible women that are from, also from Guerrero, from Amatenango, and deep, an agricultural community, deep in the boonies of Guerrero, off the road from Acapulco, the highway that goes down to Acapulco from Mexico City, Cuernavaca. And to me, they always reminded me of that figure, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, that figure that helped that little boy, came to that little boy, and I thought, that's where they got that. And I remember visiting Charles Moore's house, the famous architect, that when he moved to Austin, he had a huge collection of these. I thought, oh, okay, he likes them too. The chicken is by Guillermina Aguilar from Ocotlan, Oaxaca. Continuing on with the chicken theme, here is a large water jug by Guillermina Aguilar, and I just find it just so joyful. It's just filled with joy. This is a chicken that I got in Chichicastenango in the market. The people from around the Totonicapan area come to the Sunday market with big jars, and a lot of them are in chickens or frogs. I mean, it's kind of hard to tell what's going on here. But anyway, I think it's a lovely piece. And this piece is by Jose Antonio Garcia. And he lived across the way from where the Aguilar sisters lived. He was related to their husbands. The three Aguilar sisters married three Garcias. And anyway, he was an incredible folk artist, and he still is. He was also a butcher, and he went blind. And this is a piece that I collected back in the 80s, really I've had this piece a long time. And before he went blind, he got glaucoma, and he never, he didn't know to go to the eye doctor to get treatment when it first started coming on. So he's continued. He married a woman from San Antonino, and she is helping him, and his daughter is helping him continue the work, but it's not the same as the original pieces that he did. I also have a mermaid that I'll show you in a little bit by him, one of his original early pieces. I love this because this is Alberto Vasquez. It's a photograph of him with his big leather glove. He's out in the cornfield playing the pelota mixteca. He died young, but he was an amazing Zapotec rug maker from the village of Teotitlán del Valle. These are photographs that are very special to me as well. These are the Zapotec family, the Juan Montaño, and Juan Montaño sitting in his courtyard using a child's chair and then an adult-sized chair as his desk to work on designs. This is his wife, Joaquina, getting ready to, tending the fire, getting ready to boil the herbs to make a dye bath. And then there is a picture over here of the daughter-in-law, Maria Montaño, cleaning the wool after it's been washed. Okay, so here is a beautiful Zapotec woman from the Isthmus of Tehuantepec, dressed in full regalia. She even has her gold earrings on and the flowers in her hair, her gold cross, her beautiful jewelry. She's all ready to go celebrate a special ceremonial occasion in her village. This was by Guillermina Aguilar, one of the famous Aguilar sisters, and it's from about the time in the 80s when she was represented in the book The Masters of Mexican Folk Art that was published by Banamex. This is an incredible piece from Michoacan, also collected in the, and this could have been the early 90s. This was collected in the early 90s as well. I got this in Pátzcuaro, but it was one of the concurso piece, meaning a piece that was entered in a contest in Michoacan in Uruapan. And this was my husband Charlie's favorite piece. He loved the men dancing being led by the women. So these are typical pieces that used to be made all the time in Okomichu. It's also an older piece of folk art, probably from the early 90s. And I have it on this little tray with a selection of mezcal that's from Oaxaca. And then I have a collection of a few other varieties. There's about 5 or 6 cactuses that they make the mezcal from. This is one of my favorite, comes from one of my favorite palenques. It's outside of Mitla, and we go and visit his little cottage industry palenque when I take tours. And we all do tastings, and anyway, this is a very delicious mezcal. I used to go to Michoacan quite a bit and go to the little town San Jose de la Gracia on the way to Patamban, and there they made this incredible, beautiful green glaze pottery. And Lisa Orr, who is a famous potter that used to live here in Austin, I think she's since moved to Boston, would talk about how they were all lead-based glazes. But every little thing, every little pinch, they would make those giant pineapples too. And I used to sell quite a few of them at my store, El Interior in Austin. Okay, so here I have a collection of older pieces of Mexican folk art. The ones with the white background are Mayan from the Yucatan. I got them in Merida back in the 70s. And the one in the center, the white piece, is with the flowers, the pink flowers. That's a sahumero, meaning it's an incense burner. It's what they use to burn copal. The two animals on either side, also with the white background, are for candle holders. The one moving down to the Tree of Life, that is an amazing Tree of Life that I got from a collector in the 80s, and he and his wife had collected folk art in the late 60s and in the early 70s, and he had no idea who made it. And it totally surprised me when I was working quite a bit with Alfonso and Marta Castillo. They came and stayed with us here. They were doing a workshop and demonstrating their folk art in my store, El Interior, in Austin. And they went, "Oh my God, that's one of our original first pieces," you know? So, and they didn't quite know exactly, but they thought, late 60s, early 70s. Anyway, he became a grand master. He got the biggest prize that the Mexican government gives for folk art. So this is one of the older pieces. The mermaid, the turtle, the alligator, frog, fish, and the mermaid on top. That was also one of their early pieces. And then this skeleton Katrina was a later piece from the 90s, when they would come and stop. They would be doing workshops at the Chicago Museum, Mexican Museum in Chicago, and on the way up or on the way back, they would stop off in Austin and sell things and do demonstrations in Austin. Now we go down to these original folk artists, once again from San Martin Tilcajete. The fellow with the guitar, the tiger, the wolf, dog, coyote person is by the Xuana Abad Xuana, and it's the Arte Xuana from San Martin Tilcajete. The frog is by Isadora Cruz. The mermaid with her child in her arms is by Coindo Melchor. And then the devil with the snakes and the angel wings and symbols of calaveras, that is an Isadora Cruz. And now we're going down to the chickens. And these are all chickens that are from the town of, well, actually this one and this one, town of Santa Cruz de las Huertas in Jalisco. And this I love. I got it from an old lady in the market. It is a bank, and it always comes with a coin in it. I mean, I remember buying it in the market in Oaxaca, and she said, "Oh, you have to have a coin in it, so let me stick a coin in it." So. This, I want to point out the chicken or the frog picture that I have various wooden spoons and things in. That's by Gorky Gonzalez. And then the larger pieces of tile with the nature scenes, the palm tree, the birds, the trees, the turtle, cactus, those are all hand painted by Gorky Gonzalez in his version of Talavera pottery. The other picture with wooden implements in it is from Dolores Hidalgo, also a Talavera pottery making town in the state of Guanajuato. So Gorky lives in Guanajuato, and then Dolores Hidalgo. And we have a mortar and pestle that's out of that incredible volcanic stone that's used all over Oaxaca, actually all over central Mexico. So the rooster tile is also a Gorky Gonzalez piece. Here I have a very small collection of what I call authentic danced Guatemalan masks. We've got the Españoles and we have the toro in the middle, and then on either side we have the maracas, the sound makers, the sonajas that are used in the parades that they have and the dances that they do in Guatemala. And I collected those in around Chichicastenango. So this is another collection of mostly masks from Oaxaca, from the various villages. The top mask is called a jardinero, the dance of the gardeners. And the next one, the black one, the negrito, is sort of this clown figure that they have in many of the festival dances in the villages outside of Oaxaca. The next one is a viejito. It's from Michoacan, part of the old dance of the old men. And then the last one is also that clown sort of coyote figure who goes around and breaks the seriousness of the dances and makes people laugh. I'm going to talk a little bit about the dream that I have, that I'm holding and doing research every time I go to Mexico now. It's about the textile tradition down on the Costa Chica of Oaxaca. And here is a little piece of pottery that represents a woman from Pinotepa, Don Luis, who's part of the Mixteca Baja, where this textile tradition is alive and well. There's several villages. This represents her spinning cotton. And this is some cotton that I actually grew here from seeds that I gathered down there. It's the brown cotton, which is highly valued. Here is some of that cotton as well. And it's used in their textiles. And it's highly, highly valued in with the Amuscos and the Mixteca people because it's so labor intensive, and it's a wild variety of cotton that they continue to grow. It's not the domesticated version. But this is a map of Oaxaca with all the traditional regional costumes. And so the Costa Chica, the area, the villages, the Amuscos village, and then the Mixteca Baja communities stretch from Puerto Escondido up to Acapulco. Okay, so in 2017, I had the good fortune of going to Australia, and so I think it's pretty fabulous. It's all natural pigments. It's on a tree bark, a big bark of a giant tree. We visited a wonderful gallery in Sydney, and this had been collected in the 60s. So it's kind of one of the more original before their art became more commercialized. And it's by this artist, Jimmy de Jimeni, and of course I'm butchering his name, but anyway, it's about, the thing that I find so fascinating, it's about where the food sources are located. And so all of these things, these plants here that are in the water, and these animals, these ducks, are all edible. And so it's basically a map showing where the good places. They get in their little boats and they go out and they harvest these things from the water. And so that was a lot of what the original Aboriginal paintings were about these food sources, these watering holes. On the top shelf here, on the right, are lacadon pieces. And they are a group of indigenous people that live southern Chiapas along the Usumacinta. And they were recently discovered. I mean, people only figured out that they were there when Franz Blom, or Trudy Bloom's husband, was doing oil exploration in southern Mexico, Chiapas. And so she used to have a place where you would go and have lunch. You could have lunch, you could stay there, you could have dinner. And then she had a fabulous little gallery where she sold these lacandon pieces. And I just fell in love with them because they were just so primitive. They were so unlike most of the folk art that was available in Mexico at the time. In the center is Dolores Porras, who did the mermaid that's in my fireplace. That was a piece that she did. She was really outside the box as well. I mean, she just had her own sensibility of what was beautiful and attractive. And then going down to the next shelf, Josefina Aguilar did the couple that's kissing. And then a lot of the other pieces, the couple on the donkey, riding on the donkey, those are from that little village, Pinotepa Don Luis, which is part of the group of villages that I want to do the documentary on. And I love it's like a bride and groom escaping. The piece that's on the far right, the little red woman with things hanging off of her, was by one of my favorite folk artists in Santa Cruz de las Huertas, Natividad. There are quite a few pieces in there that are hers. Even that, and it's called a nagual because they had they believed that during the night these spirits would come in and run off with all the dishes. So that little piece represents a nagual that's gone into somebody's kitchen and absconded with all their dishes. There's another one, a little bird with a snake around it. That's also a nagual as well. And then the bull, she did that little bull. And I loved it because she was in her 90s when she was still doing this work. She was just an amazing woman. The next shelf has more lacadon pieces on it. There's the jaguar and these birds. And then the piece in the far background with the hands up has some of this cloth, this fibrous cloth that they used to wear. I mean, they had really long hair and would wear these huipiles, kind of like what I have on. And then there's an alligator, a caiman, that's part of that collection. Okay, so this is one of the favorite parts of my house. It's where this beautiful clawfoot bathtub is, surrounded by mermaids. Here is a metal mermaid from Haiti. I have a bark painting, an older bark painting from Xalitla Guerrero on the amate bark, painted on the amate bark paper. There is a mermaid playing a horn here on the wall, and then another one playing a flute or a clarinet. Here in the window, which probably you can't see very well, is an old Metapec mermaid. And then here in this little arch, a mermaid that I really do adore by Jose Garcia Antonio, the fellow who went blind. He's also the maker of the two mermaids on the wall playing the instruments. And I remember when my first granddaughter, she would come and visit me when she was like 2 or 3 years old, and she'd come in and go, oh, mermaids. She was so thrilled to see these mermaids, and she even drew me a bunch of pictures of mermaids.